I'm starting to sense a theme with you guys, and I'm concerned for you.
And Booktube did its big one on that one. Absolutely. 5 stars. 5 full stars.
I didn't hate it, but I'm confused by y'all. Truly.
Hi everyone, I'm Bria, and today we are going to be reading Booktubers' favorites of 2024. And this is my favorite video to film every single year because it really helps me kind of gauge what everybody was reading in the previous year, maybe some trends into what we're going to be seeing in the next year, and because I recently did my top 10 books of 2024 and I realized that 3 of those came from this video that I did last year. So I'm not saying that there's pressure for Booktube, but there's some pressure. And so the way that I always do this is I just go and watch a bunch of top 10 books of the year videos. A lot of these people I'm subscribed to, but then it's also a way for me to find new creators as well. So I ended up watching a total of 26 videos this year, and I definitely found some new people that I think our tastes align. But we are actually going to look at the results together this year. So I'm a little nervous. I do feel like I have a slight idea where a few of the books are going to land, but I do usually end up picking 5 books to read. That could change just depending on how this list is looking. So let me pull up the spreadsheet. So as you guys can see, I have all of the books that have been mentioned here and just how many times they've been mentioned. And this is my original document where I just have the booktuber listed and the books in their top 10 lists. So I'm going to filter on this. We're gonna do this. Okay, that happened so quick. That happened so quick. Okay. Let's zoom in here and see what we're getting. Okay, usually in the past, there's been a clear top 5. There's a clear top 4, and then we have a tie. So let's go through these top 4 first. Funny Story by Emily Henry. This does not surprise me at all. I read People We Meet on Vacation, and I did not like that book. So much so that I swear that I would never read another Emily Henry book again, but it did show up in another one of these videos, and I ended up reading Booktubers, which I actually did enjoy. So I think Funny Story is going to be the indicator if me and Ms. Henry get along or not. And then, oh, okay, The Will of the Many. I've already read this, so we're going to highlight this in red because I won't be reading that for this video. But this gives me hope because that was one of my favorite books of 2023. Can't wait for the sequel. So you guys are onto something already. So, okay, so we have Funny Story. Let's highlight this in green so we can keep track of what I will be reading. All right, and then the eyes are the best part. Okay, I think if I remember people talking about this correctly, it's more of like a literary horror. It has some cannibalism, I think, in it, where a young girl ends up liking to eat eyes. So that should be interesting. We're gonna be reading that. And then The Reformatory. Okay, I'm actually really excited to read this book. And it's funny because the last 2 videos that I watched for this, both of them ended up mentioning The Reformatory. So this one barely squeaked in, but I love that because I know this is also a like historical fiction horror type of thing. So I'm excited that we're reading that. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm actually pleasantly surprised so far with this list. So we have 3 books that we're reading, so that means 2 more. And the options are going to be, let's highlight what I have to pick from. Before I Let Go, Tainted Cup, Bloom, Blood Over Brighthaven, and Just for the Summer. Because I have free will, I'm going to choose what I'm going to be reading for this. I can already tell you, I don't want to read The Tainted Cup. I don't know what it is about that book or like the cover that it just doesn't feel like something that I would enjoy. So then Before I Let Go, this book has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I'm really itching to get to it, especially because it is on Kindle Unlimited. But I think I can fit this into another video that I plan on reading in February. So we're gonna come back to this because I kind of want to read books that I wouldn't get to typically. And then we have Bloom, which I also think is another literary horror. You guys are freaky this year, okay? You guys like some horror books. And then we have Blood Over Brighthaven, and I believe this is a fantasy novel. I know there's something about a janitor in there, and I know that the protagonist is a woman. That is probably the most vague description of a book you've ever heard. But I feel like because I don't really have any other fantasy on this list, I definitely want to read that. And I just know other than this video, I would never read it. So we are going to read Blood Over Brighthaven. Okay, I do also want to read Just for the Summer. How many books do we have? 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. I'm torn between Bloom and Just for the Summer. I am literally one of the most indecisive people on the planet. So while I was so excited to use free will about 70 seconds ago, I'm now having a small crisis.
Popping in because I made some decisions. Hopefully they're the right decisions. But the books I'm going to be reading for this vlog are Funny Story, The Reformatory, Blood Over Brighthaven, The Eyes Are the Best Part, and Bloom. Those are my 5. But now that I've made a decision, let's go ahead and get this vlog started with Funny Story.
Miles and Daphne have my heart forever. Miles is the type of guy that I want in real life. He is my book boyfriend standard at this point.
The beginning of this book had me laughing so hard because of what Miles is doing. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but he is hilarious. He is such... I felt like he was such a cinnamon roll.
I love this couple so much. I didn't think I would love any couple of Emily Henry's more than I love the couple from Beach Read, Gus and January, but there's something so earthy and real and non-fictional about these two characters.
So as you guys saw, I started reading Funny Story the other night as I was doing my 2025 goal setting activity. Every year, me and my friends try to do some type of like craft or activity to help set our goals. Last year, we did the bingo card, which has started to go a little viral this year. Not from us, but we feel like, oh my gosh, like we're trendsetters. We are ahead of the curve. But this year, it's a badge / like pin earning type of activity, which I'll talk to you guys a little bit about later on in the vlog as I kind of finish mine up, just in case you guys want to do something similar for your year. But I'm actually really enjoying Funny Story, surprisingly enough. I'm actually 75% of the way through. I'm finding myself really drawn to the story and wanting to continuously pick it up. And we follow a character named Daphne whose fiance comes to her after his bachelor party and tells her he's leaving her for his best friend, which is a girl. And this girl also has a boyfriend at the time, but they both decide to leave their partners and confess their love for each other and just run off. And Daphne is like, what the actual hell? Because Daphne's kind of just revolved her entire life around her fiance. She's obviously devastated, but she also doesn't have a place to stay. So she ends up living with Miles, which is the ex of the girl best friend that her fiance is now together with. So they're both obviously going through a lot. Both obviously have experienced some trauma from that situation, but I'm really enjoying it because I feel like they're both very genuine, and we're getting to follow Daphne and Miles as they're like getting to know each other. And I just really love something about a romance that doesn't feel insta-lovey. Because I'm 75% of the way through, I feel like I haven't hit the third act conflict just yet. So I'm hoping that doesn't piss me off. But I feel like we learn a lot about both Daphne and Miles's past and why they kind of are starting to like each other. And I love it. Like, honestly, it feels kind of healthy, even though this situation is coming from something traumatic. But yeah, you know, Miss Henry, we may be on good terms. We'll see after I finish the book tonight. So I finished Funny Story, and me and Miss Henry,
We're back together. Right after the clip that I filmed last night, I opened up the book and got hit with the third act conflict. But I really appreciate when those conflicts feel realistic and when they kind of match the flow of the story. And I feel like this one was really natural to the story, to the characters, and how it was worked through and how it was handled. I just really liked and could just really relate to. So I think I'm going to give this a 4.25, a 4.5 maybe, because when I think about romances that I've given 5 stars, the only one that comes to my mind immediately is Honey and Spice, but I think that's because that's like my favorite romance ever. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, can I give a 5-star to something that I wouldn't consider like a favorite of all time, but I really did enjoy it. So I think that's why I'm kind of leaning towards a 4.25, a 4.5. But I did start the Reformatory today during my lunch. I'm only 20 pages in, so literally nothing to say yet, but this is probably one of the ones that I'm most excited to read. So come back when I have an update for you guys, and hopefully it's positive.
I just think Taraji's writing in this, impeccable. Some of the best standard of writing I have ever read. And, you know, it's a long book, but I don't feel like any page is wasted.
And it's one that I, really enjoyed at the time. And it's kind of weird to say that you enjoyed a book like this because the subject matter is so dark and it's so heavy.
And it is emotional. It is a beautiful story. It is horrifying, but it is, I think every single person should read this book.
So as you saw, I was starting to finish up my little 2025 goal setting activity that I had mentioned before. And I will go over what some of my goals are and just how this works in a second. But I do want to talk about the Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew, and I am almost 50% of the way through it, and I'm really enjoying this so far. And I wanted to be reading it at a faster pace than what I'm reading it right now, but I feel like this is one of those stories that you really kind of have to soak in, and it is actually very horrifying. This book follows a young boy who at the beginning of the story is trying to stick up for his sister with a local white kid, and he ends up kicking this white boy, and he gets sent to a boys facility called the Reformatory. But at the Reformatory, they essentially have to do all of this manual labor. They can get sent to this thing called a fun house, which is essentially where they get beat with the whip. And there's this kind of paranormal element to the book as well. So at the Reformatory, there are these things called haints. The kids that are there can kind of see other kids that have died and their ghosts and stuff. On the flip side of that, we have our main character's sister, who is doing her best to try and get her little brother out of the Reformatory. And the whole story is just the way that it's being told. There's always just going to be something horrific about Black people's history, right? Because this book is set in the 1950s, and they do reference some real civil rights activists in the book as well. And, the dynamics between some of our main characters and white people, I feel like is so spot on. For the time period especially. I just feel like some of the most horrifying books are rooted in truth, okay? But let's talk about my goals for 2025. Oh, I don't want to drop you. And the idea is that once I complete whatever's on this card, I get to put the pin on here somewhere, and I just kind of spaced them out so that I could cover the stars with the pin or the patch. And so I have these little badge cards where I wrote out my goals for the year. I will go over some. I'm not gonna cover all of them though, because some of them are kind of personal, and I love y'all, and we're getting like this, we really are. But y'all need to know everything. I think the way that I wrote my goals out this year is really gonna work for me, because I think in the past
a lot of my goals I wouldn't have been able to accomplish until the very end, or it required me to essentially never mess up, right? And that's like not realistic, and that makes you kind of get your hopes down. But for example, I have this Feeling Foxy pin, and the goal that goes along with this, the badge name is Crown Confidence. And how to earn it, I have to experiment or find a new hairstyle that makes me feel confident. Try 2 new hairstyles. Let's see, then I have Fit for 3, work out for at least 4 days a week for 3 months straight. And I like the wording of this because say I work out for 3 months straight, January, February, March. Great, I get the patch. But say I have a flub in February, right? I still could get this patch all the way up into like the end of the year, right? So I could not work out for this entire year and still get this patch October, November, December, and still earn this patch for the year. Another reason I did it this way is because if I'm saying 4 days a week for 3 months straight, if I'm doing that for 3 months straight, that's me building a habit. And then we have camera consistency. Post 3 YouTube videos a week for 3 months straight. And this patch is so cute. It's like a little owl with a camera. But I have this little bag so that the cards and the patches and pins don't get lost, and I'll put them somewhere near this so that I can see it and stay motivated for the year. But with that, I'm gonna continue reading. So I finished the Reformatory, and Booktube did its big one on that one. Absolutely. 5 stars. 5 full stars. I'm so glad that you guys had this in your top 10 books of 2024. Like, so glad, because I don't know if I would have picked it up otherwise, which I really hate to say. And so obviously this is a horror novel, but the ending of it, the pacing felt like a thriller. Like, I literally had my heart beating the entire like second half of the book. And you would think that that would only come from the perspective of the boy in the Reformatory, but I was also getting that feeling from the other POV of his sister who is trying to free him. And I think that comes from just the interactions between the black and the white characters, right? Knowing that they were defying probably what was best for them being able to live and survive, but also at the same time needing to fight the wrongs and the injustices that were being dealt towards them. And so it was just kind of like this anticipation of like what's actually going to happen. Like, I'm so scared for you right now. And I feel like with horror, especially this type of horror, it's horrific because it's not that far off of actual history and fact. And it just kind of really puts things into perspective around like what people went through in the 1950s and just like the race relations and just this like fight for survival and the fight for injustices, whether that's for people who are living as well as people who have died in the past. This book was everything that you guys promised, and I really love that. Like, I truly love that. So much so that I've decided for like 2024, I'm gonna try to do a better job of like only buying books that really call to me or that I just feel for whatever reason I want physically. And because I didn't have this physically, immediately went to order. But since then, I have also picked up Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang.
You'll be feeling the feels in this story, while also having some of the most interesting magical systems that I've ever come across.
The escalation and the derailment of this plot, I would say, was one of the most intense things I read this year.
I think everyone should read it. If you don't, this is one of the few books where I'm like, if you don't like it, there's something wrong with you, and you're probably the problem.
Blood Over Brighthaven. Let me see if I can give you a good synopsis of this. Because I actually didn't know like anything about this book before going into it. I was really giving Booktube my blind trust here, but I'm about a little over 100 pages in, and so we are following a woman who is trying to break the glass ceiling and become the first woman mage in this world. And so with her being the first mage, I mean, she's trying to get into this like magic school that has never accepted women before, and so she has to go through these like tests to get accepted into the school. And the way this magic works is it's kind of twofold. So the first half, they have like a little typewriter that they have to put in like the spells or the magic for it to work. And so you kind of have to know a combination of things. And the combination is one, like you have to know, for example, how to get something from point A to point B, or to get something to do what you want it to do, right? That's the first part of the spell. The second part is knowing how to source the energy you need for part A to work correctly. And I feel like the first chapter of this book, ML Wang needs to write like some type of course on how to intro a book. Okay, I feel like in a short amount of time, we were introduced to a story and a plot line that I think is going to come back later. And we're already actually kind of seeing how it's converging in the first 100 pages. But the pacing of it, the way that we were able to figure out what characters may be important later, we were already getting a sense of how the magic works and how it can be bad, and the hierarchy of people, all within like 10 pages, right? Where you don't know how it's going to play out later, but you know it's going to play out. And the fact that we got set in that so quickly. And then from there, being a woman in general, but being the first woman to do something, you know that it's not going to be easy. And I feel like I was already frustrated watching our main character trying to like overcome this hurdle. So far, I'm really enjoying it. And I haven't read a fantasy in a while that I've just been like, okay now. Okay now. You know what I mean? Like we're getting somewhere. And I'm loving the writing style so far, but we're only 100 pages in, so we'll see where the rest of the story goes. So I actually just finished filming another video that I need to quickly edit because this year I had the goal of making sure I post at least one video a week, which means that I'm trying some different content that doesn't require me to read, especially when I'm doing a bigger project like this. And so who knows if I'll stick with this type of content, but it did require me to do a little bit more research that I'm like not used to doing, which is why I was just putting it off. And so I was supposed to be uploading the video yesterday, and I just filmed it today. Tier ranking 2025 anticipated book adaptions. And this year I told myself not only was I going to try to be more consistent with content, but when it comes to my ideas of what I'm going to put out there, I'm trying to put out stuff that I'm looking for or that I want to watch. And the video that I originally had slated this week, I just don't know if I'm going to actually end up finishing filming it, which is kind of talking about my office makeover. I feel like you guys have seen a lot of my office already because I've been filming in here more, so I just don't know if that's something that you guys would enjoy or not. But let me know down below in the comments if that's something you want to see or not, because I do have footage of when this space was completely blank, some of my inspiration for getting this space together. And there are a few other things that I want to do in here, but I'm like, will it be anticlimactic? I don't know. I'm gonna work on editing the video I just filmed. Obviously, I can't listen to an audiobook and listen to myself talk as I edit, but I do need to do the thumbnail. And so when I do the thumbnail, I will listen to a bit of Blood Over Brighthaven because I do have the audiobook for that. Have you ever wished that for the sake of your mental health, you were just a little stupider? That's how I'm feeling. It is January 24th. I live in America. And I know that self-awareness is a good thing. I know that caring about my fellow people and their freedoms and our quality of life is important to care about. But it's draining me. If you're watching this and you're just kind of feeling a little down, you're feeling a little similar to me, just know that I see you. Hang in there, okay? But if you are someone who's like, I don't like politics in books, you're gonna hate this. I'll just start out by saying I've missed magic. And I feel like M.L. Wang does a really good job of intertwining this magical world and this magic system into something that feels really real, but also has a lot of social commentary on religion, on sexism, on a political view of where someone's view of what's right isn't necessarily what's right for the greater good. So in this story, our main character, she has recently discovered something that has shaken her belief system to its core. She knows that some of her beliefs have been incorrect, but she's being challenged by her assistant, or the janitor that is now her assistant. And I feel like our main character is really frustrating me, but I think that's the intention. She is so set on the way that she was brought up and her ideals, which isn't far from how a lot of people would view things if you've grown up your whole life. And I'm going to take religion as an example because that's kind of what's used in here. If you've grown up a certain way, believing a certain thing, and then someone brings to you fact that disputes that directly, you get defensive. And it's hard for you to see the other side. And I feel like not only does this book talk about like religion, but also wrapped up into that is the treatment of people that may feel lesser than you, right? And obviously there are some parallels there in American history, but in this book, our main character is also kind of confronted with her thought of how she viewed the Quinn, which is a people in the society that usually people kind of forget about. They're used for labor, and essentially they're immigrants from a different part of the world that are trying to have a better way of life, because where they live at, all of the resources are gone and they can't survive on their land. And we learn why they don't have resources and why they can't survive on their land. And oh my gosh, I just don't know if this was the right time for me to be reading this. Like I'm enjoying it. The story is written really, really well. I love the magic system. I love the conversations that we're having, right? But it feels a little too raw for me right now. But I am about 50 or 60 pages away from the end. I have about an hour left of the audiobook, so I definitely want to finish this up. I think right now it is leaning closer to like a 4.5 for me. Like I said, in general, I do like social commentary in books, especially when it's done this way. I just don't know where it's going to end up, because like I said, the main character is really frustrating. I think she's a bit selfish, and while I think that that's the intention of the character, it'll be interesting to see her full character development. Okay, so I went to put the camera up and I realized there's one other thing that I want to talk to you guys about. And it's kind of just a funny / scary story for me. But Books and Lala also films a Reading Booktubers Favorites of the previous year video. And she does hers a little differently, where she finds booktubers that have the most in common with her and like their reading tastes align the most. And so I've actually been featured in that video 2 times before, but last night I had hopped onto her members live show. She was doing some reading sprints, and funnily enough, I usually don't hop onto those, but I needed to get some work done. I needed to get some reading done last night, so I hopped on. And as I hopped on, she was like, "Bria, I'm featuring you in Reading Booktubers Favorites again." The nervous laughter that came out of me, because the 2 times that she has featured me in this video, she has not liked the books that she has gotten from me as recommendations. And so I'm nervous to see how the book that she's reading for me is going to turn out. I'm scared. I'm scared. So before I finish Blood Over Brighthaven, I'm gonna go watch that video because I just got a notification that she dropped it a little early for her members. So I've been working up the courage to go watch it. So let's go do that.
This up, and surprisingly, I was actually able to get through it pretty fast, which will tell you a lot about how.
Now I know If I select, I know if Bria's watching this right now, she's going, what are you doing? I know that if I pick the wrong book and I give it a low rating, Bria is gonna kill me. We've been here before, and I don't want to choose the wrong book. I don't love it. Oh my god, I'm in so much trouble. So here's something.
So I had an idea, or I thought I had an idea of what book Kayla was reading because of me. Turns out she decided to pull a couple of things. Just go ahead and go watch the video if you haven't already. I finished Blood Over Bridehaven the other night, and I figured I'd tell you guys about it as I'm making myself dinner. I'm just making this like Instagram, TikTok viral like vegetable salad. It just has cucumbers, pepper, and some seasonings, which I'll show you guys in a second. But I'm conflicted about the ending of this book. I don't think I've ever read an ending like this before. I feel like it really leans into put your money where your mouth is, okay? If you say that you are open to new ideals, if you say that you're open to helping support a marginalized group of people, how far would you go to stand on that? And I feel like this character did that. I'm still kind of conflicted with how she reacted to certain things, but I feel like it goes to show that our main character is just a very multifaceted character, and I did enjoy that. But I also just struggled with the fact that I just didn't agree with how she thought about certain things. But like, I'm not her, right? And I feel like by the end of the story, I respected her decision making. And I feel like this book just kind of hit on a time that just feels too close to home, right? But I will say that it was very well done. So I think I'm leaning towards a 4.25. And now I'm very interested in reading M.L. Wang's other book too. I was already interested, but now that I've read this, I'm in there, okay? Sword of Kaigen has just gotten bumped up on my list.
I genuinely love the writing style of this. I thought it was very fast to read, quite quick paced. I just absolutely love following a main character who's a little bit strange.
Unhinged main character. Another one kind of similar to Mary, where it's like, I support you, but also respectfully, what the fuck?
You know, I don't think this video would be as fun if I was liking everything that I was reading. I hate to say it, but the Eyes Are the Best Part is falling a little flat for me right now. I'm about halfway through it, and it's just feeling very literary at the moment. We are learning about a young girl whose father has left their family, and their mom is really upset and distraught about the whole situation, and she ends up making them this feast, and she eats the eyeball of a fish that she cooks, saying that it's good luck. At first our main character is like disgusted by it, but then she's like, you know what, I'll give it a go to make my mom feel better. And ever since she eats the fish eye, she starts to have these like dreams and thoughts of wanting to eat like a real person's eye. And I do feel like we are starting to get to the horror aspect of everything, because our main character is having trouble determining between her dreams and reality. We're also learning about her past and some situations that she's had with friends. We're learning about her navigating college while all of this is going on with her family. And I'm starting to get this feeling that I don't know if we're going to be able to trust the main character completely. But you know, I can understand so far, I guess, why people like this if they like literary books, but I'm just a little underwhelmed at the moment, but I do have 50% of the book left and it is a short book. So I'm hoping that the story starts to take a turn that I enjoy, because right now it just kind of feels more literary than horror. You know, every year on this list, there's always at least one book where I'm like, I do not understand the hype. And unfortunately, it is The Eyes Are the Best Part. I will say the book did pick up in the second half. It got horror. It got disgusting. There's moments where I was like, ew. And like literally gagging because the descriptions were too vivid for me when our main character was eating the eyeballs. It also had me thinking, like, y'all really read this book? This girl is killing people, eating eyeballs, and y'all said, yep, I love that shit. Top 10. But I can kind of understand why people like this book. We talk a lot about racism, misogyny. It's kind of like a coming of age story as well. And I do feel like at the end I was like, you know, good for her, kind of. So it's like I can kind of understand why people like it, but it making it into y'all's favorite of 2024 lists, something's not adding up for me personally. And I think because it was a horror novel, I was expecting it to just hit the ground running with it being horrific. I feel like I've read other literary horror books that still had a lot to say, but also felt disgusting or horrific or had body horror, any of those things. And so I think that's what I was expecting going into this. So I was a little disappointed by the end. And by the end, I was kind of like, all right, I'm really kind of ready just to wrap this up and be done with it. But overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think it was a decent book. I didn't hate it, but I'm confused by y'all, truly. And then I have started our last book, Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. And I was reading the inside flap of this, and one of the last sentences says, but as her obsession with Ash consumes her, she may find she's not the one doing the devouring. And I'm like, oh, someone else is gonna be getting ate up in here and not in the way that we all love, you know? So I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this, but I am getting ready to go to a Valentine's pop-up with one of my best friends. We're gonna go get drinks. So I'll take you guys along for that, and I'll be back when I have some more thoughts about Bloom.
Atmosphere is phenomenal. The characterization of these 2 women, so good. I don't know how Delia S. Dawson was able to make me feel this strongly about a book in only 200 pages.
Had me shocked, jaw dropped, gagged, gooped, glumped. I was shooketh and shaken. I was truly just like enamored because I did not expect the ending to be the ending.
Y'all, I made a new latte recipe with vanilla bourbon extract and brown sugar syrup. I think this is actually one of the best lattes I've made at home. But I wanted to give you guys an update on Bloom. So I'm about 75 pages in, and essentially so far we've met a girl who has recently broken up with her boyfriend, and she goes to this farmer's market and she kind of starts to get feelings for one of the girls that runs a booth there. We're seeing the character doubt herself a little bit when it comes to some of the interactions. We see her kind of getting into her head a little bit, but that's really it so far. Like, there really just isn't anything to say. I mean, based on what the synopsis says in the book, I do think it's going to get a little spooky. We're going to start getting a spooky hour soon, but so far, not too much has happened, and I'm nervous that it's going to be similar to The Eyes Are the Best Part, where we don't really get the horror until later, unless I'm just misunderstanding what the genre is, which could be completely true because I feel like with a lot of these books, I've just blindly trusted you guys. Are y'all okay? I'm starting to sense a theme with you guys, and I'm concerned for you. And so, as I mentioned before, this is a sapphic romance that follows two women who meet at a farmer's market, and the girl who has the booth, she's known for like cupcakes, pottery, plants, soaps, all of that. And they end up forming this like kind of relationship, which I can't necessarily say I enjoyed, but I'm not sure if I was supposed to enjoy it. I literally just finished reading this like 30 minutes ago. And the ending of this book, I can't say that I was super surprised. There were little hints and clues and pockets of things that had me leaning towards where the ending was going to go. However, I do feel like the writing style of it and how it was told still made the ending really impactful, and I feel like the last couple of pages really just solidified it home that was like, oh, this is crazy. And so this is a short book, so I don't want to give too much detail away. I do think this was very atmospheric. I think it was well written. I think we were able to grasp the dynamic and the shock of the story within a very short amount of pages. So I think the author should be really proud of that. However, for me, I'm giving it a 3.5, which isn't a bad rating by any means. It just, I don't think had the same impact and hit that it did for the people who had this in their top 10. But I can understand why this made it into people's top 10. But nevertheless, I'm still concerned about you guys. And so that is the last book I had for this vlog. And while I want to do some home checks on you guys, I feel like overall your picks were phenomenal. I think once again, we can trust Booktube and their recommendations. And so just to recap, Funny Story, I gave a 4.25. Me and Miss Henry, we're going back on a trial relationship. I really did enjoy that, and probably my favorite Emily Henry that I've read thus far. I gave the Reformatory 5 stars. This was the highlight of the reading vlog for me. I have a strong feeling that this is going to end up in my top 10 books of the year. I have a feeling. And then we have Blood Over Brighthaven, which I also gave a 4.25. Very well written. I will be reading from this author again for sure. And then The Eyes Are the Best Part, I gave 3 stars. It was a good book. I understood what it was trying to do. It just wasn't really meant for me. And then, like I said, Bloom, 3.5. And if you made it to the end of this video, leave a house or cabin emoji to represent the Reformatory, since I love this so much. And I hope to see you guys again here soon. I love you guys, my little tater tots. Bye.